Welcome, Mogalites. We're back for another episode of Tea Time with Steven. And today we're so honored we have the godfather of Buddyfight himself, the keeper of the Midwest, Dirk Vanden Heuvel. Let's give it a clap. Clap, clap, clap.
Yeah, none of those titles are from me, man. I did not come up with any of those.
Yeah, the community did. Don't I?
Yeah,
If you
okay.
want to, it's okay.
Any complaints in the comments about me calling myself the Godfather? I do not call myself the Godfather.
It's okay.
Other people may refer to me that way, but I do not call myself that.
They can come to Underground and we'll settle it.
All right.
But welcome. Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So let's jump right in, Dirk. Mr. Dirk, you are actually a world qualifier, and you run what might be and probably is the largest seller of Buddyfight product and cards and accessories in the Midwest, and especially with Card Academy gone, that makes you like the only one, and you own their stock, correct?
Yes.
So how does it feel being such a mega Bushiroad vendor and retailer?
Unappreciated.
And like that, the two.
I mean, honestly, the only reason I do gaming stuff and Bushiroad games is because I personally like playing the games. My son Ian first got me into playing Vanguard years ago, and I really enjoyed it. And from that love of the game and from the frustration of not finding a good place locally in Chicago to buy all the cool Japanese accessories and to find a lot of the singles, and also to get sealed product at a better price, without having to resort to mail order, I started the shop. And then when Buddyfight came around, I started playing that, and I wasn't super serious about Buddyfight until a little while later. And now I probably am more interested in Buddyfight personally than I am Vanguard. I mean, I still play Vanguard, I still like it, but I enjoy Buddyfight more. And honestly, that's the only reason the store exists. If I didn't play those games, there would be no Underground. And so Underground exists out of my love of the game and all the problems and challenges that I have being a Bushiroad store, I put up with because I love the game and I play it. If I didn't play the game, I don't know that I would put up with it. It's not worth it. There's not enough business there. And it's a thankless job. And honestly, when you look at it, that's how the store showed up. Because like when we started with Vanguard, we bought out all the single inventory from Hot Sauce. I used to play at Hot Sauce. And so when I started the shop, the owner at Hot Sauce was like, I don't play Vanguard. None of my staff plays Vanguard. We sell it, but we don't make nearly as much money on that as we do on Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm perfectly happy to get rid of it. So I was like, sure, I'll buy all your stock. And then Card Academy, it was kind of the same thing years later, but Card Academy was hands down the best store in the Midwest for Buddyfight singles. I mean, we were a little better than them for accessories, but they were definitely better than us for singles. But they couldn't make it, they couldn't survive. And so he closed down and we bought his stock. And once again, the only reason buying either of those shops out made sense is because I personally love the game. If it was from a strict business point of view, it was kind of foolish. But
this is why a good godparent does that. Takes after the children when the parents die.
So
just saying the thing is there, but you mentioned that it's not profitable, and so that brings us to our second question. There's this contention in the community that Buddyfight as a game is dying because in the States because we don't as Americans buy or support it enough. And as someone, and people always say that, but there's no numbers or facts, but as a vendor and retailer, you actually can experience that. You track all the sales of each Bushiroad game individually. So that being said, do you agree, disagree, have a story?
I don't agree that the game is dying because that implies that it's getting worse than it was in the past. Uh, I would say it is an underperformer in terms of sales, but it's always been an underperformer. When we would vend at regionals, we would make 3, 4 times as much from our Vanguard sales as we would for our Buddyfight sales. And that was always the case. And you would even see it in terms of the turnout. You know, Vanguard might have 300-400 people, and Buddyfight would be maybe, if you're lucky, 100. You know, so I think the problem that's new is not so much that the game is dying or anything like that. I think the problem is Bushiroad realized that the game was underperforming, that they were getting stuck with stock. And so they overcorrected. They started printing much closer to what their pre-sales were. So if you had your pre-sales in on time, and the pre-sales are due way in advance, if you had your pre-sales on time, you got everything you wanted, okay? And you were good. If you didn't get your pre-sales on time, or if you had last minute orders, or people didn't pre-order and all of a sudden, you know, a week before release or a week after release, they were like, oh, I want a case. Well, then you couldn't get it, because most of the sets in the last, I don't know, 6-7 months have been selling out on pre-order. So there's no extra stock. So all the people who don't pre-order and, you know, then decide they want some, a lot of that stock isn't available anymore. And it used to be, but there used to be too much stock. And so everybody was stuck with stuff. And so now it's the opposite. Now there's not enough. And so certain cards become much more expensive because there's not as much of a supply, or you simply can't find them. And I think that's what comes across as people thinking it's dying, because they go to their store and they don't see booster boxes of some of the sets, because those sets have all sold out. But from a business point of view, I think Bushiroad's probably in a slightly better position now. It's better that you sell everything you make, and unfortunately you don't have any left over. Now, admittedly, you're leaving some money on the table because there's sales there you could get. But the flip side is, if you make too many and you don't sell them, then you're stuck with product you've made, and it devalues your product, because everybody looks at all this stuff sitting around and go, wow, this game, no one's buying it. It's not selling. So that's the thing. I don't think it's dying. It's definitely not dying in Japan. And as long as it doesn't die in Japan, they're still going to give us something. So, you know, for the game to really die here in America, it's going to have to die in Japan. Oh. And it's not dying in Japan anytime soon. So, you know, that's the key.
That's a good thing. Let's have a follow-up on that, because I always think that, why do we not put in our pre-orders on time? And this is a slightly deviant conversation about the difference between competitive and casual people. Because as a casual player, I know, is that Katana World? Well, here, take the money already. We know it's coming. I don't know what it is, but it's coming my way. And I find that competitive people always think, well, is this going to be game changing? Is this going to be meta? Let's wait. And in ironic state, I think Buddy spoils us by spoiling all the cards. Mm. But by the time the set is spoiled, the set's out, and then I think that's the pre-order is too late. Right. So what would your advice be to people who feel like they're being left out in this whole, I don't get my orders, like, but I don't want to order something if it's going to be bad?
Well, it's I mean, that's a really good point, because the problem is, for most of the sets, we don't get the information about what's in them until too late to get your pre-orders in on time. And it used to not be a big deal, because the pre-orders were a gauge, but it wasn't like that was all that your distributors or your stores would have. There'd be extra stock to buy. So even if you didn't pre-order on time, you didn't notice that that was a problem, because there was still stock available. Because back then, Bushiroad was still making lots of extra stock. Now they're not. So now everything gets spoiled on Buddy Spoiler at a certain point, and you're like, oh, wow, that set looks really good. Let me go order it. Well, now the pre-order time has passed. Some people will take those pre-orders, but then what happens is they can't get the stock. And so then they have to cancel it. And we've seen that happen the last few sets where certain people have taken orders and then have had to cancel the orders on release because they just couldn't get the stock. And people have been saying, oh, it's short printed, things like that. No, it wasn't short printed. It was printed to what people pre-ordered when the pre-orders were due 3 months ago. That's the problem. You know, when you order 3 weeks in advance, dude, that pre-order date has long since passed. Someone may take your order hoping they can find you product, but there's no guarantee. Those numbers have already been submitted. So I think what happens is, you know, a lot of people wait for all that information to be spoiled before they place their order, and then it's too late. So the thing is, like, if you were casual, you might be like, oh, well, this sounds good. I see certain worlds I play or clans I play or whatever. I'm going to order a couple boxes, or I'm going to get in with a few of my friends and we'll buy a case. But a lot of the competitive players, and it doesn't even have to be the serious competitive players, but I mean, we all know, you see it online all the time. People are like, don't buy boxes, buy singles. Well, yes. Singles require people like me to have bought a whole bunch of extra stock. Well, I base how much extra stock I buy based on what my pre-orders look like. So if my pre-orders are bad, I'm not buying a whole bunch of extra stock because I don't feel like there's enough demand. So it's like this catch-22. And so then the singles come out and there's not that many. And so they get, you know, gobbled up real quick. And then people who decide later on, oh, I want to build this deck or I want to do it, you can't find the cards. Or if you can find them, they're prohibitively expensive. So, I mean, the ideal situation would be if people just were like, oh, I'm going to order a few boxes on spec. You know, I'm going to hope that there's some cards in there I really want. But you know, that's not the way most of these people operate. They're not doing that. They hate buying boxes anyway. They're all about the singles. So, and the thing is, as a vendor, I can't pre-order singles 3 months in advance. I got no idea what's even in the set. I have no idea what to price them at. So, you know, if all you want is singles, then it just screws up the whole system in a way. You know, so I mean, I guess that's kind of the problem. I mean, I don't really have a great answer. You know.
I agree. Sometimes there is no right answer for human behavior and certainty and caution. I think the best case is Glory Valiant. Like, who wanted to commit to that? If you thought your set was and you were going to get 2 cards, he's like, yeah, no, you can hold out the singles. But I was like, oh no, 3 boxes only. I just was like, everyone's going up. All right, I'm getting 3 boxes initially, and then hopefully there'll be world splits the more things are revealed. And so I did. But once again, that's a casual mindset. I'm like, what? Please. I get what I need, and I'll give the rest to friends. I don't know.
Well, in a way, I mean, just to jump in about that, in a way, this whole lockdown delay has helped in a sense, because now the release dates for a lot of these are pushed out. And so there's more time for people to kind of find out what's coming and be like, oh, wow, I really do want that. Whereas if these were coming out on time, there may not have been enough time. It would have just been like, okay, here it is. And everybody would be like, oh, man, I should have ordered that. So now there's time if people, you know, jump on it to get with it.
Oh, now we all have perfect information. So now we know what we can expect and we can spend accordingly.
Right.
Look at Corona. I mean, you know, minus the deaths and the global system shutdown, silver linings. Is it worth it? But that brings us to our next thing about support and coming to the States. And we noticed that there is no release date for, or if we're ever getting SAO, Metabots, these second wave of crossover, second and third wave of crossover sets. And people have this theory that we may not get crossover sets because Bushiroad doesn't think they would do that well in the States.
This is all opinion. Now, it is an informed opinion because I've talked to Bushiroad, but they've never straight out said this is the reason, this is why, whatever. But my feeling is the last couple of crossover sets did not overperform. Okay, they did not do great. So Gridman did not do that great. Now, the saving grace for Gridman is they didn't bring over that much stock. So there wasn't a ton of stock left over on Gridman. So they didn't get stuck with stuff. But the flip side is they didn't sell very many Gridman because very few people pre-ordered. So the pre-orders for Gridman were terrible. They didn't get stuck with anything, but their sales were terrible. You go back to Case Closed. Case Closed, they sold a bunch, but they had a ton of stock left over. Every distributor in America is sitting on cases and cases of Case Closed. And no one's buying it anymore, okay? Because players aren't trying to build it anymore. And if they were trying to build it, there's still enough singles in the market. You could build it off singles. No one's buying boxes. Bang Dream and Cinderella Girls did all right. But once again, once those sets are done, no one's buying them that much now. And they didn't sell huge numbers. So I think what happened is Bushiroad looked at the crossovers and said, they did all right in America, but they didn't do great. And then specifically with Metabots and SAO, the delay was so big, the meta was changing so fast that I think they just realized there's no point to do them now. Now, I don't think that means we won't get crossovers in the future. I don't even know how many crossovers Bushiroad is going to do anymore. If you look at the schedule in Japan, there's no Japanese crossover scheduled. They're going much more to their old characters and trying to revive them. You know, they're like, you know, why should I license stuff from somebody else? I'll do my own stuff and push that. So it looks like this crossover experiment for Buddyfight might have been a temporary thing to try and grab some people in Japan while anime was off to get them involved. And now that they've done that and they're able to concentrate on their own stuff, I think they're less interested in crossovers on Buddyfight, and they're going back to putting those kind of projects on Weiss. Now, the one exception is, you know, there's the Bang Dream coming for Vanguard, but that's because Bushiroad owns Bang Dream. Bang Dream is their own IP. You know, when they go to Goblin Slayer or they go to SAO, they have to go license that from somebody else. They got to give them money. Yeah. Bang Dream, they own that. Like I wouldn't be surprised if someday we see a Milky Home Vanguard because they own that. So things they own, it's easier for them to cross over. So I think the bottom line is, I don't know how many crossovers there are going to be coming, period. But there's no guarantee that if there is another crossover in Japan, we'll get it. The determining factor will be whether or not they think it will sell in America, and also whether or not the timing will be such that by the time it comes to America, people will care. So, you know, I mean, God forbid they ever did a One Piece crossover. I mean, One Piece is big enough. I think they would have no problem selling that, you know?
Yeah, but I always thought they would. I was always hoping that we would get a Vanguard in Weiss set, so you wouldn't actually play the monsters; it would just be the characters. So it just Aichis and Kais.
That's actually a really good idea, because if you tried to do the monsters, there's way too many. It'd be too hard. Like, which clans do you pick? But if you just did all the characters, you could do a whole deck just of Vanguard characters. That'd be kind of cute.
So, but that's a good thought about like the concept of having to pay people to use their things. And you see it on the Bushiroad survey. It's like, which would you all like? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so, well, thank you. See, very insightful. So,
I think the other thing is kind of along those lines is, so when they do a crossover set, they have a whole bunch of time that they have to spend licensing it. Okay, so they have to do this deal to license it from somebody else. Then they have to do the time to actually design the cards, which is all Japan. You know, all the Japanese people do that. Part of the problem with Bushiroad USA is Bushiroad USA does not have a lot of input. They are not in any way, shape, or form an equal partner with Bushiroad Japan or Singapore. Okay, they are like a little satellite office. cards. So what happens is, let's say you're doing a crossover set. Basically what that means is you're doing a crossover set for Japan. So first you make the deal, then you make the cards. Then the cards need to get printed, made, okay? It's only near the end of that process that they turn around to America and English language, to Singapore and everything, and say, hey, we've got this crossover. What do you think? So they're already, even at that point, if they decide they want to do it, they're like 3-4 months behind. Then they have to manufacture the cards. So by the time they manufacture their cards, they might be another 3 months behind. So now, best case scenario, you're like 6 months behind. And if the meta has passed where those cards are no longer relevant, especially since you can't be guaranteed there's ever going to be any more support, is it even worth doing? So, I mean, if Bushiroad English was like an equal partner with Japan, then what would happen in an ideal world is they would decide to do this deal. And as soon as they decided to do the deal, both people would start working on getting the cards done. Like as soon as the Japanese card was done, they would just send it over to get translated so that they could have simultaneous releases. But that's not going to happen. You know, with the stuff that they do in-house, in the best of times, they can get close. You know, I mean, I think we were, there was a certain point where we were within a month of most releases. But apparently with these crossovers, it just doesn't work that way. That they don't talk enough between the departments to do it. So
the tea.
Some of them. I mean, I've heard that the English language people find out about some of these crossover sets when they're announced to the public.
Yeah.
So they find out the same time that the Japanese customers do. Hey, we're doing this, and they'd be like, "Oh, really? I didn't know." So
that is
what I've heard. That is the rumor on the street.
You heard it here, Mocha Lights. The tea, it is fresh. But you bring up a good question about meta, and due to this situation we're in, it looks like we kind of dodged, or our meta of time dragon colonization and world domination has kind of been postponed because, well, the world is postponed. So by the time we theoretically get back to any form of normality, we're thinking, what is the meta going to be? And we're talking about like post Glory Valiant, if we even have singles this year. And so we're always asking everyone, what do you think are will be the top two decks post Glory Valiant? And that's after Buddy 2, Buddy 3, and everyone's glowing up. Will it still be Time Dragons? Will it be something new who got support? What do you think will be the top two decks?
I think as good as all the support that's coming in the next few sets is going to make some old cards that all of a sudden you're going to be able to play some of your old decks again. I don't see anything that knocks Time Rulers off the top of the heap. I think Time Ruler, maybe other decks will be able to fight against it, but I think in the end, Time Ruler is still going to beat most of them. I don't see anything that really defeats Time Ruler hands down. So if you're saying like, what are the two? I think Time Rulers is still going to be one of them. I think the second one, I'm not as sure. I think I think Lost World is getting more support. I mean, Lost World was always broken. And I think some of the new cards with Lost World, and then some of the decks that have Lost Vader supports, whatever, so you can continue what your deck does into Lost World, like with the Blade Dancer one or the Draw Metal one or whatever. Those might be good. I'm not positive which deck will be best with Lost. Like, is it still Dimension Dragons? Like, is the number 2 going to be Dimension Dragon updated Lost? The only other one that really I have to see when it comes out, but I'm thinking might be a game changer, would be Godpunks. Like, I think the new Godpunks, I think it just really messes with people. Like, there's just, it's just hard for you to play against that. In the same kind of way that Time Rulers just says, no, you can't play the game. I think God Punks with the new support is going to be like, you can't really play the game. I'm going to take your stuff. So if you don't have stuff, you can't do anything to me. So I think it might really be the case where the top decks might be Time Rulers and God Punks. If it's not God Punks, it's going to be something with Lost World, but what that other thing is, I'm not positive. It might be Dimension Dragon Lost World.
Yeah, that's I like that. I like that thought. Time Duel is still on top, but God Punk sneaking in there because it's.
I mean, God forbid. What if you did God Punk's Lost World? I mean, that might. I don't know if there's any way to turbo into Lost World with God Punks.
But just its presence alone, just to think that there's a Vanity in the center and two Brawl Zeus's, like, no. You do not have a board. Yeah. You don't have a hand either. It's okay, or not. You'll figure it out.
I mean, it's just that there's certain mechanics of the way Buddyfight is. I mean, the fact that you can't counter call costs. Yes. You know, that simple little rule, you know, that there is no counter to call costs just makes God Punks so much better in a way that a lot of decks just can't handle it, you know.
I actually agree. I am so afraid of them. I'm like, oh, this is why I'm casual, because I will not sit across from that. But
yeah, I think that's a deck where people will really be coming up with either hate decks or at least hate side decks. You know, where you're going to be trying to come up with, like, okay, if I face God Punks and they're going to try and take all my stuff, what are the cards that I have to side in to at least give myself a chance?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I agree. Time Dragons, God Punks with maybe a D Dragon or someone going in the Lost on the end. Well, thank you, Dirk. That was amazing. And, you know, we always want to give everyone the opportunity to plug all their stuff. Now, we know, and I will say it once again, the godfather of Buddyfight. Fight me. I the hill we die on. But we know that you run Carpets Underground. So we're definitely going to plug the shop and its TCG store in the description down below. But is there any other media or platforms you want to tell our viewing audience about?
No, just our Facebook group, Card Fighters Underground. We put information about the shop, but also we kind of are like a clearinghouse for all the information on the Bushy Road games. So Weiss, Vanguard, Buddyfight. So, you know, rather than having to follow like 10 different people to find out the new cards of the day or rulings or things like that, we put it all there. So if you're not a member of our Facebook group, you should join that. But answer the questions, because if you don't answer the 3 questions, I'm not going to approve you. So
exactly, I agree. I mean, I agree. And remember, we always shop for Underground. It's a store. It's not a person. So it's better if you're going through secondary markets. Like I said, thank you for having us. Round of applause for the win.
Thank you, Steven. I
appreciate you. No, it was very informative. I'm definitely going to hope we plug it. So all you Mogolites out there, remember, it's YouTube, so you have to like, comment, and subscribe. And for us, that's